Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new here, this is Automotive Anonymous, and I'm currently driving a 2024 Chevy Silverado with the Turbo Max engine and the Michelin Primacy tires. Depending on where you measure the tread depth, they have around 9 or 10 peak 30 seconds of tread. And today I'm gonna take it on some slushy, icy, unplowed streets and show you exactly how a regular LT Silverado with the Michelin tires do. I recently just hopped out of a ZR2 Bison that had 35-inch Goodyear Wrangler tires, and that did a phenomenal job. Only a couple times did I get stuck in two-wheel drive and have to use 4 auto or 4 high and the mode select to get into the terrain modes. But I'm really curious to see how the regular high volume seller LT Silverado does, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are wondering that as well. So if you enjoy what you're about to see, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get right into it. First of all, let me say that an unloaded full-size regular 1500 truck is a very bumpy ride, especially when it doesn't have all the high-end suspension that a higher-end truck does, like a Raptor R, a T-Rex, or even the Bison. This one is bouncing all over the place when we're taking a corner or going over different levels of elevation in the snow on the ground when we're getting in and out of the ruts, which is pretty interesting. If you guys have seen any of my regular full-size truck reviews, I talk a lot about how drastic and how crazy the body roll is. If you've never driven anything that's super tight, super sporty, like a ZL1 1LE Camaro or some of those Cadillac CTS vehicles, you might not notice it, but under normal driving, trucks are bouncy, especially when unloaded. And a lower-ish trim level like the LT, where that's in the lower half of the 9 trim levels offered by Chevy, it only has around 8 inches of ground clearance on these 265 wide Michelin tires on it. So it's gonna be a little bit easier to high center this compared to the ZR2 Bison that has almost a foot of ground clearance. But you know what's really fun? Driving your truck in the winter, especially when you're not in a hurry, when there's not much traffic around, and you can kind of test its limits and kind of see how it does, and to become a better driver, know what to expect, know how the vehicle's gonna handle, and the physics that you just can't get around. Starting out this video, I was actually in 4 auto, but now I'm in 2-wheel drive, and you can see the traction controls on, and we're gonna see how it does through a variety of accelerations, stopping, changing momentum, and things of that nature. Full-size trucks like this take about 48 feet to do a full circle, and the rear can't slide around on solid ground, so we do need to give ourselves quite a bit of room. And these streets are not exceptionally wide. I know it's a lot wider than some other areas of the country, but these neighborhood streets aren't as wide as some of the ones I'm used to. And the driveways, it looks like a lot of people have been shoveling. There's a lot that's been plowed, but we do need to be careful to stay away from a curb with these tires. There's just not nearly as much sidewall as there was on those 35-inch Wranglers. But taking a turn and accelerating is pathetic. I have over half throttle input right now, but because the vehicle is sensing spin, it was limiting it and it wasn't letting me go anywhere. So let's take the next corner with traction control off, and we'll see what difference that makes. You can already hear the Turbo Max engine spooling up, which sounds really good for a 4-cylinder with a 2.7. It does a good job. What doesn't do a good job is this Bronco Raptor that was just stuck right before I started filming. Oh, sorry, that's not a Bronco Raptor. It just has the Raptor lights, but 4 ambers instead of 3, so it's a look-alike. Here's another Silverado taking it slow. Looks like a work truck from the early 2000s. I'm gonna stop for just a minute, still in 2-wheel drive, traction controls off. You can see that this street has been plowed, so there's not many changes in elevation here. Let's see how this does getting up to speed with traction off. All right, so spinning if you rev it. Let's try to go very slow with the RPMs. And it's really not accelerating very quickly. This to me doesn't feel any better than, say, a front-wheel drive Honda Accord or some other front-wheel drive car would do for getting started in these type of conditions. But now that I'm already going 20 miles, oh, that was 20 miles of wheel speed. I'm actually going 12. So let's see how acceleration does on this street that has some plowing, but not as good as the street I was just on. And still, it's really not doing a very good job in two-wheel drive with traction off. So now let's turn traction control back on. I'm then gonna hit 4 auto again, let the clutch-based all-wheel drive system engage. We're now in 4 auto. Let's try to take a turn. With the front wheels able to spin and grab, where most of the weight of this vehicle is on the front half, probably about 60% front, 40 on the rear, it's doing a whole lot better now. Let's slow back down to maybe 12 or 13 miles an hour like you just saw, and I'll do a little bit of an acceleration. And now I'll let off the gas so you can see the true speed. Yeah. So this with 4 auto accelerates a whole lot better than two-wheel drive. Two-wheel drive, you gotta be careful. You gotta put some weight in the bed or have good tires, because even though a 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive system is super valuable, good tires are usually your better bet. And the thing I love about Chevy's 4 auto system that not every full-size or mid-size truck has is you don't have to turn it in and out of 4-wheel drive high like you do in other vehicles to not damage your drivetrain when you go onto dry roads or you have to take corners. An area like this where you can see the neighborhoods are all slushy and icy, spinning everywhere, but the main or more main streets aren't. It's nice to just leave it in 4 auto and to be able to just launch through whatever you need to and not constantly have to be rotating the dial and have potentially catastrophic events take place eventually if you forget to control your dial. All right, so 4 auto with traction on does pretty well, but now let's turn off traction control. You can see it's off there, still in drive, auto, and we're in the regular drive mode. We're not in terrain. I just turned it to terrain on accident to set up the system, but we were in normal right there to the left. There's sport, there's off-road, and there's terrain, but I'm just gonna stay in normal for now with traction off. It's spinning, we're having a good time. Inconsistent plowing, as you can see in this neighborhood. Oh yeah, getting sideways, kicking up some snow. And look at this, with all the drift and the lack of shoveling in some of these areas, you can't really tell actually where the sidewalk is, or it's very difficult to decipher that. Let's maybe take this corner as well. Again, 4 auto, traction off. Looks like this will be a cul-de-sac. Oh yeah, we're spinning, we're having a good time, but you gotta be careful. The last thing you wanna do is to hurt anyone else, hurt yourself, or have your rim kiss the sidewalk. I'm gonna hop off for just a second and show you what the snow looks like a little bit closer up. You can see it's pretty inconsistent. There's quite a bit of elevation changes depending on where the tracks are, and compared to the ground clearance of this Silverado, it still is doing just fine. I don't think we're gonna high center ourselves today unless we do it intentionally. But just for the heck of it, I'm going back to two-wheel drive with traction control on, and we're gonna see if we can get going through this. Yep, and you can see my foot is pushing down and the vehicle's not letting me go anywhere. Let's see if I can back up and reverse. Okay, so I can back up through the line that I had, and Chevys have such a great camera, especially their 360 system. Let's go into drive again, see if I can get some momentum. And it's like it instantly stops you. All right, we're gonna turn traction off before any of these people out here think that I'm stuck. Which currently in two-wheel drive basically am. I could play around with the wheel, and if I really was stuck, try to just keep going back and forth, get enough backwards distance that I could launch forward. But let's turn traction back on and go into 4 auto this time around. Let that system engage. And I'm anticipating this will be a piece of cake. Yep, it shifts power around where it needs to be without spinning too drastically. I love all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. It just makes life so much easier when you drive through states that have all 4 seasons. You don't have to worry about what set of tires you're on as drastically as you would in a two-wheel drive vehicle, whether front or rear. But just for fun, let's go back to two-wheel drive, show you guys the distance one more time, the difference one more time of the lack of distance that we go. Again, foot is basically to the floor. I'm trying to even get into those pre-existing grooves, and we're just not going anywhere. Okay, we'll turn off traction, and now it overspins, kicks up a lot of snow, and I'm just slowly sideways fishtailing, which just looks like I'm messing around, which I kind of am. So let's go back to 4 auto. And what a substantial difference that makes. I hope this video has been insightful or interesting to you guys, for those of you still watching. I'll maybe put it into 4 high because I haven't shown you what that looks like yet. That we just need to be careful that we get out of the system when we get back onto the main road. And then this is, it's still, you know, likely a clutch-based system, but that's just how the Chevys work. They're not likely to kick you out of 4 high, but it's not as solid as a system as like a Dodge Power Wagon or something that uses a different set of differentials and doesn't have the clutch the same way. But overall, basically feels the same that it felt in 4 auto. But very bouncy ride. I'm sure you guys can pick up on that on camera, even though the depth of the snow and the severity of the lack of traction isn't very present on camera like it is in person. All right, back into 4 auto, and I'm gonna start to head back to drop off this truck because I think we've learned that these Michelin tires are not nearly as good as the Goodyear Wranglers that come on a lot of the other Silverados, like the RSTs and the ZR2s and stuff like that. They do okay, but they're an all season and they don't have the same tread depth. I'm not sure if they're shaved down or if they're just not, you know, the 30 seconds that some of the Goodyears I tested showed. Those had a lot of tread depth, likely will last a very long time. These Michelins are gonna get you better gas mileage. It's not designed to be an off-road truck. It's supposed to be a city truck, an LT that's used for work and used for daily life. And they do a really good job with all of that. But let's finish up this video in 2-wheel drive with traction control off so that we can hear the Turbo Max engine spool a little bit, because these are pretty fun. If you haven't seen it already, I actually did a 0 to 60 comparison of all 4 engines on the current 2024 Silverados, and the Turbo Max is a substantial power plant. It does a pretty good job, and a lot of people on the forum seem to really like this powertrain. It doesn't have a ton of moving parts, even though there is complexity added from the turbo. A lot of people really like these, so maybe don't knock it till you try it. But if you liked my video, if it was helpful in any way, please consider liking it. That small act of kindness actually goes so far in helping my channel to grow. Subscribe if you want to watch more. I do a lot of reviews, but when I have the opportunity to do some other fun stuff, like drive some trucks through the snow, drive other vehicles through the snow, do a lot of 0 to 60 testing, I take advantage of those opportunities because they're fun and it's a learning experience for all of us. So I wish you guys the best. I hope you take care, and see you again next time.